Okay guys, so I just want to go over the overview of this 2013 GS. So as you can see, here is the new clutch access location. This has been hit on in a couple different videos, but here's another look at it. I was mentioning in the video, as you'll see, discussing the suspension setup. As you can see, here is your coil carrier, and your shocks here are just for oil. The other thing that I wanted to touch base on, and I will in the video as well, is the tires on this bike. It is running the Metzler, let's see here, they call them the Terrance, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Maybe I may have completely butchered that. They are 120/70/19s in the front, and the same tire is the 170/60 in the rear. I believe yes, that's correct. So 120 and 170. New exhaust setup. Personally, I like it a lot. I think it looks great. It looks a little bulky. It sounds good. Has the valve setups, meaning that under load, this servo will open, and opening the valve and the flow of exhaust through. Definitely audible noise change. Here's a quick suspension adjustment. Low and high speed, simply adjusting this direction. And here is a quick cable for your battery tender. This is from the dealership. This particular bike is red in color. Personally, I'm not a big fan of red, but it looks okay on the bike. Here is access to the rear seat. Rear seat access is through this hole here. You take your key, which let me demonstrate. You stick it inside, obviously. You turn to the right, which will open the passenger, or you open the left, which will open the driver. Simple as that. Let's go to the dash display. Turn it on. And we have here our fuel level, our gears, our miles, our speed, RPM reading, and speed reading. Very easy to read, very simple dash. On the left display, as you'll see in my video, I will go through, you have trip and info, which controls trip, controlling the upper area where you currently read the odometer, and the info, which is where you currently read the speed. Going through the info, I hope that that is clear and you can see it. It will show speed, oil, which is the oil temperature or level in this case. This is the date. This is the temperature outside, currently at 88.7. Engine temperature at 199, as I just got off the bike. Consumption 1 and consumption 2. There's also an average speed. Going through the top, you have the odometer, trip 1, trip 2, range, and there's a setup menu. You see the ABS light flashing. That is typical of all BMWs that are equipped with ABS. It will blink until you start to move and then go away. It can be completely disabled here with the button labeled ABS. This is your cruise control button. It is engaged by moving it to the right, and then set is pushing on, and you can increase your speed by pushing either back to increase your speed by 1 mile per hour increments, or down to decrease by 1 mile per hour increments. Clutch is fully adjustable, as is the brake, with 4 separate adjustments here. Heated grips using the heated grips button, start and stop, all controlled there. The windscreen, fully adjustable while moving. I will also demonstrate that in the video by simply turning this knob and lifting it up, and I will demonstrate how easy it is to do while moving. BMW has also changed their signal location. Instead of having the left here and the right here, you now have both controlled, as most bikes do here. So left is left, right is right, push to cancel, simple as that. And the bike, I also note on, is a shaft drive, or direct shaft, which this bike means does not have a chain. The idea behind this is to basically reduce the amount of unsprung weight, and it also is less maintenance, and the idea is here to basically have something that you can ride for farther distances with less maintenance and more reliability. I think on a setup like this, this is exactly the way I'd want it. I really like the current setup. The new water-cooled engine is phenomenal. I will leave all that to the video to discuss, but I wanted to give you guys a quick overview of the bike, how it looks, This bike does not have the LEDs, unfortunately. I would never buy this bike currently without it, but I'll show you how they look as of now, even though still great looking. If some of you prefer or do not get the option, you're not getting a bad bike. Just personal preference, I would rather have the LEDs. I think the technology is great. Here is the location for your BMW bags that are not mounted, nor do I have for this bike currently. These are the locations as I'm pointing to here and here. The only other thing that I can hit on this bike is I love the location of the passenger pegs. Really makes for a relaxed setup if you sit on the back. I haven't had a passenger, but I have decided to sit back there. I know it sounds silly, but it was worth seeing what it's like. Love the location of the radiator fans, the ducting, everything. So smart. BMW, as usual, really putting a lot of thought into these bikes. The frame design is phenomenal. Great access to the engine, great access for service. Very, very easy bike. Yeah. Stay tuned for the video. Hey YouTube, how's it going? I'm on a 2013 BMW 1200GS. This is the new engine bike for 2013, water-cooled engine, and gonna do a little review for you. So let's just get right on going. Okay, so again, 2013 BMW 1200GS. This is their new engine, as I mentioned. It is a water-cooled engine rather than the traditional air oil-cooled engine. Thus far, I've got about 500 miles on the bike, and I thought it was a good time for me to start sharing some of my opinions. So, bike has been bumped up in horsepower and torque. It produces 125 horsepower, 92 foot-pounds of torque. The bike has a wet weight of roughly 525 pounds, somewhere in that area. Don't quote me exactly. This bike is a direct shaft. It is not a chain drive, and it is a standard 6-speed. Some of the new features on the bike right off the bat are the adjustable windscreen, which controlled through this knob will raise or lower the level of the windscreen. Does make a dramatic difference with small increments of change. I think that's a great feature. The bike thus far, I really enjoy it. I'm not an adventure rider, so this is new for me. I really was always thinking, as a sport bike rider, is this something that I would really enjoy? I love riding. I love to go on long rides, but I always seem to get attracted back to riding on a sport bike. And you know, it was a great opportunity for me to be able to get on this bike and test it out to see what I think. And now I want to share it with you guys, and hopefully if you're new to adventure riding and similar position as me and trying to consider something like this, I can help. And if you're already adventure riding and just want to know more about this bike, I can help with that too. So far, like I said, I put 500 miles on the bike, and the bike total has, let's see here, scrolling through the top menu using the trip control, got 1,596 miles on the bike. So closer to 600 miles I got the bike with 1,000. This is what I can tell you. In comparison, for me, that what's new is the bike has very strong low gearing, of course designed for its all-around and of course off-road capabilities. The bike has, I would say, decent braking. I would expect personally a little bit better. I feel the fact that it does have stainless braided lines from the factory. It does have Brembo monoblock calipers. It does have, the hydraulic braking system, and I believe all those in combination, I was expecting quite a jarring braking response, which it does not offer. However, I am not saying the brakes are not good. I was just expecting more. The bike, when you're on it and you're there, one of the first things that you absolutely love is your all around visibility. You can see everything. You're sitting just as high as any SUV. You know, if you're riding in the freeway, you can see traffic as far as anybody else. And it really makes you able to, of course, judge traffic, you know, draw better lines. If you're splitting lanes, which is legal in the state of California, which is where I'm riding, then that's even better and an advantage for you as well. As far as power, you know, again, the bike, as you see, full throttle, gets right up to 100 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, just like nothing. I mean, it's cake. And here we go, brakes, rev matching, simple, cake, no problem. Very, very, very easy to ride. You know, one of the things I'll say about this bike is, you know, the CCs, oh, it's a 1200. Wow, it's a 1200, so big. That's, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that comment. You know, honestly, the bike looks big, the bike looks tall, the bike looks bulky, and it is for the most part, but when you're riding, it handles incredibly well. I mean, you know, I've gone riding around with a couple sport bike guys, and they cannot lose me, and in fact, yesterday, they could not catch me. This bike is just awesome, and I think with the right rider, and of course you got to get used to the fact that you're way up high, so it has an exaggerated lean angle, meaning that when you're going around a corner, you think you're, you know, parallel to the floor, and you're not, but it definitely makes you feel like that. You know, the suspension is phenomenal. I talk about suspension as I just go over this massive bump. The suspension is great. You know, BMW has a interesting fork design. The two front forks hold oil, no springs. There is a separate shock or separate coil carrier, which you know, has your springs. So that makes for a very interesting setup, something I'm not familiar with. But what it does do is it definitely gives a lot of adjustment, but more than that, it definitely, with a bike like this and having so much travel, if you will, shock travel, you have a lot of stroke. So under braking, a symptom could definitely be that you're going to have a lot of nosedive. Well, this bike does not suffer from that at all. I would say that I get the same amount of nosedive as I do on a basic sport bike. I'm not going to compare it to a S1000 or something like that, because surely those bikes are far more stiff, and this bike is not, thank God, as that would take away from the complete purpose of this bike. The bike, again, suspension's good. It is not dialed in for me, so I can't talk at deep lengths about how great the suspension is, because it's not set up properly for me right now. It's a little floppy on a bump. The rear end is not keeping up with the front end the way I'd like currently. I know all that can be fixed and adjusted, and there is available adjustments on the bike currently, so I know that can be done. So that's not a concern nor an issue. Just that is an issue for me as I'm riding it right now. So let's talk about some of the things I've noticed about the bike that maybe weren't so good. Which first one that got me by surprise was the fact that the fuel economy on this bike. You know, BMW has posted on their website a miles per gallon of, I believe, 57 miles per gallon at a constant speed of 55 or 56 miles an hour, which obviously is slow. You know, that's below highway speed, but if you're on back roads, you know, or doing some traveling through, again, back roads, something like that, you know, maybe that's a speed that someone might be able to maintain. So I gave that a shot, and I tried to cruise at around 60, so a little bit above that. Upon cruising at 60, I was averaging about 45 miles per gallon according to the dash. How accurate is the dash? Well, I don't know. I have not done a physical calculation by running it and then filling gas and dividing it by my trip. But that's something I am going to work on, and I will post on later on, as I'm planning on doing a nice long highway ride starting tomorrow. But Thus far, if I scroll through using the info tab, and by the way, I'll talk about the dash display here, which I believe was updated for 2013 in a second. So you have two buttons. I'm not sure if you can see them, but I have a trip, which is both on the same button, mind you, but you push up for trip and down for info. So basically, if you push down for info, it will control the bottom half of the screen. It will cycle through what we're seeing now: engine temperature, consumption 1, consumption 2, speed, date, and the external temperature or exterior temperature, which currently is a staggering 87.8, which for coastal San Diego is very warm, and I am loving every minute of it. And if we get one more, let's stick at the engine temperature. This is something I wanted to talk about. You know, a lot of guys might be considering riding this bike as a commuter or in the city, and then having a bike to go on a travel on. Now, let's be honest, 90% of the owners of these bikes, from what I've seen, this is not a factual, more than my own facts-based opinion, but most of the owners of these bikes buy them with the intention, oh, I'm gonna go adventure riding, oh, I'm gonna go to, I don't know where, go on a traveling somewhere, and let me tell you, this bike makes you want to do that, no doubt about it. But most people don't actually end up living that dream when they buy it. Some do, but most don't, that I've seen. And let's talk about realistic use. You're going to use it in the city, you're going to use it in town, a little bit of highway. One of the things that's important is how comfortable are you doing that? You know, is the bike running really hot? You know, do you feel like your leg is on fire and you gotta get, you know, put it out by dipping into a pool or something like that? And I've been on plenty of bikes that do that, and it's never fun. This bike with the engine, which I will demonstrate as I get off the bike later, does sit forward of you rather than directly underneath you. So in a way, it definitely reduces the heat that you feel. Your seat most definitely does not get incredibly hot, as you would expect on a sport bike. A lot of the time, it stays at a nice temperature, but because the engine does stick out both on the left and right side, you do feel in the city, especially on a warm day like today, you definitely do feel the you do feel the heat off the engine resonating onto your legs. And on a bike like this, I'm not wearing leathers. I'm wearing what some would call more on the adventure gear side, and I don't recommend doing this, not wearing a leather jacket today, which is very rare, in fact extremely rare. I don't think I can remember the last time I rode without a jacket, but I wanted to kind of ride relaxed today, which again is not smart. In fact, it's stupid. So don't do that. That's a bad example. But the bike does not have a major heat issue, which surprised me. It has a big engine, it's heavy, the engine's working a lot, and you know, on a sport bike doing the same thing I'd be doing right now, my engine would be somewhere in the 210 plus range, just because I'm moving way too slow for the bike to be getting enough air into the radiator ducts to keep it cool. On this bike, because the engine protrudes and it is getting air from a lot more angles than a sport bike is, and it does not require the speed generated to keep it cool, and again, that's the design of this bike. This bike is not designed to go around a racetrack. It is not designed to be competitive in a racing circuit. It is designed for an adventure rider who's going to go and explore and spend, let's say a better word, spend a lot of time on the bike doing a lot of sightseeing and enjoying, which is not the intention of a sport bike. While some may do it, great, good for you, but that's not the idea behind them. This bike, it definitely gives you a real, I guess, fun factor on it. I'm on it and I couldn't believe how much I'm tossing around and and just, you know, just sporting around. I feel I'm driving it as though one would think I'm on a sport bike. I mean, in fact, in some ways, I catch myself being overly aggressive on the road with it just because it just lets you do it. I don't know what it else. It is a fun bike to ride, really fun bike to ride. I mean, you get on it and you ride around, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I mean, you're just blitzing everywhere, and that is something that I think is pretty darn cool. Okay, someone's honking at me. So I mentioned the fuel economy. Let's go down to that meter and see what we're reading right now. Currently, consumption 1 is reading 38 miles per gallon, 38. And, you know, I'm going to say for a 525 pound roughly bike, plus me on it, so let's say just under 700 pounds, you know, I personally don't think that's too bad doing what I'm doing right now. You know, I expect on the highway to get a lot better than I was. I don't know what the effects were, you know, but you know, we'll give it another shot here on the video and see if we do a little bit better. But 38 miles per gallon is basically what I've been seeing everywhere as an all-around average, which is okay. Currently I've got about half a tank of fuel left. Again, going through my now trip meter, I'm going to scroll through and I'm going to see a range left over of 81 miles per gallon. Now let's jump onto the highway and let's see how she does. So let's pick up some speed. So as you can see, picks up speed as fast as anyone would hope, and it is a blast to ride. So the bike currently is a 6-gear at 65 miles an hour, revving at just under 4,000 RPM. So I would say in comparison to a sport bike, it is going to be at a far lower RPM. Let's go ahead and reset the consumption. By holding down the info tab, we have reset it. We are now cruising and we are averaging a, okay, well, let's be honest, we're going downhill. Let's wait till we get back on steady throttle. And in fact, what I will do is engage and discuss while I'm getting downhill here, the most fantastic feature on this bike, in my opinion, the cruise control. Let me tell you, it sounds interesting, and you're not sure if you'd really want to use it. Well, let me tell you, you will. This is a phenomenal feature on the bike. You simply engage it by sliding the tab to the right. That turns it on. Let's gather a little bit of room here where I can do a quick test. And so we are sitting at 65 miles an hour. We simply take the set button, push it down, so away from me. As you can see, it turned on a green tab on the display. That shows that it's engaged. And my right hand is off the controls. Now, as you can see, a quick demonstration, this guy is going too slow, so I'm going to touch the brake. Touching the brake disengages it, allows me to take and regain throttle. Same thing occurs if you touch the clutch. Brake will disengage it altogether. So that being good. Now, we're on the highway. My windscreen is low. I am getting hit with just a tad of wind. Let's engage the cruise control. Let's take my right hand and let's adjust this. Perfect. We've lifted that all the way up. I am now sitting on cruise control, averaging 58 miles per gallon. So I would say now better than advertised, which is good to know. I wanted to test that out. We are on perfectly flat freeway, doing just over 70 miles an hour, averaging an average of 58 miles per gallon, which I think is fantastic. That is giving me a current range of 80 miles on half a tank right now, which I think is going to go up and up since I just reset my hour. So now we're braking. I'm going to use the brakes, disengages my cruise control, and we are getting to a stop. As you can see, we are messing around with this bike on the highway as though we are sitting on a couch at home enjoying the sun and absorbing our tan. which I think is exactly what you would want from this bike. Turning is just so easy. Clutch, very lightweight, yet does give good, decent feel. The engagement point, or some may refer to it as the friction zone, is tough to find and feel. You really, it's quite numb, and so that's one thing that takes a little bit of time to get used to, is where the bike's going to engage. The other thing is this bike, similar to a sport bike, at the low RPMs, is jerky. It does not like it very much. It does like to stay in a little bit of an RPM. Doesn't mean that it needs to stay at close to mid to high RPM either. Just means that it just doesn't want to be, you know, lugged around at, you know, idle speeds with the clutch engaged too much, which, you know, not that most bikes do, but it just, this one doesn't. Of course, keep in mind when you ride this bike, it is not light. You have a heavy bike. You're moving a lot of weight around, and so when you test this bike out, if you go demo it, or if this convinces you that this might be something to consider, just keep in mind that it is a lot of weight moving around, and especially with you on it, just keep that in mind. You know, the bike has to do a lot of work, a lot more work than your 350 or up to 450 pound sport bike is doing. Now, we are now at a section we're going to travel a little bit up a hill and see if we can't get an idea on how she handles. So, just cruising around, doing around 5,000 RPM shifts. Barely any throttle, just cruising, just so easy to relax. As you can see, the bike just flips sides. Like, I mean, think about how much weight I'm moving around here, and it just moves around like nothing. Cruising, cruising, cruising. Love it. So, let's talk about a couple other things. Seating position, phenomenal. Comfortable, couldn't be in a better spot. You sit on the bike, and you are just so happy to be sitting where you are. I've been in the saddle on this bike for a constant 4 hours, which is nothing for this bike, and I could have continued for another 8 easily. And keeping in mind that I have no adventure riding experience, so you know, I thought that was pretty cool, and definitely it definitely inspires you to ride a lot more. I think that this bike, surprisingly, if you ride a smaller CC bike, maybe you're riding something like a Ninja 650 or a Yamaha FC8 naked bike, or even a I'm trying to think, a Honda NC 700X. Both great bikes, but you want to upgrade something with a little bit more oomph, and something that maybe has more capability. I believe it definitely does. And of course, now we are behind a Prius, worst vehicle ever made. And let's Prius just gets me so angry every time I see it. So the bike, as I mentioned, if you're upgrading from the bikes I've just listed, definitely a very, very good bike to consider. I've ridden the Ducati Multistrada. I wish I could have done a vlog on that, and I don't have as much time on it, so I'm not going to give too many direct examples, but I can tell you that I feel that this bike is far more refined and offers far more capabilities in one package. Meaning, you can definitely take this bike and go on fire roads or mild off-roading. I would say that you would want to be a fairly skilled rider to do something like that, as keeping in mind you are moving and controlling a lot of weight on unstable surfaces, and I believe that it is a challenge to ride these bikes in a lot of off-roading. It's a lot of weight to control. It's not something I personally would want to do. I would much rather be on a dirt bike. Now, if I'm going to go do fire roads or a lot of hard pack, maybe salt flats, something like that, this could be a blast. But realistically, in California, I don't see a lot of that happening. Now, if you lived in Arizona, Nevada, Utah, then yes, I think that is the mecca for this bike. However, again, in California, not so much. But this bike still will negate all that, being that we have incredible roads traveling up to Northern California, and just the road exploration that one can do on this bike, I think, is invaluable. You know, it's just so comfortable, so much availability. Now this bike too is I guess more on the base model end of this bike. It does not have the GPS mount. It does not have the traction control with the different riding modes, and it definitely is still without all those knickknacks and added technologies, which I would definitely want if it was my own bike and I was buying it. It is still an incredible piece of machinery, and I would absolutely consider it. I would prefer also to have the driving lights, which this bike does not have with it. I think at night that would be a great feature. The standard headlights on this bike, they are still the halogens rather than the new and incredible LED technology, which I have seen and played around with. I think they are incredible. I would not consider this bike without them. In combination with those and the driving lights accessories that are mounted slightly below toward next to the engine, I think that combination is unbeatable. There's more than enough light for most people, shy of somebody going strictly off-road where there's no natural light at all, and they have to be very cautious of what's around them. Whereas if you're on the road and you can see far enough on the road with your speed, then I think you're good. So, saying hi to these guys. What a day out here. Beautiful. So as you can see, my consumption just cruising around as we've been doing has dropped to around 46, which I still think is excellent. I'm actually learning as we go myself as to see where the consumption is going to be with this type of riding. So let's go to the other things. Let's take the break here. We're doing about 30, and let's stop. To me, that was okay. I think it should have stopped a little harder, and that was as much pressure as I could apply. But nonetheless, excellent stopping distance in comparison to other bikes I've been on. And just the handling characteristics of this bike are just great. It's so tossable. One of the things to keep in mind when you ride this bike is do not become a numb rider, meaning do not ride crossed up. Do not let the bike move underneath you. The bike gives you a tendency to do that because of your seating position, and it's a very bad habit, and it's an easy way to drop this bike into a low side. A lot of people are getting these bikes because of the available technology and hoping that that technology is going to take place of proper riding skills, and it will to an extent, but it is terrible to learn that way. You need to really make sure that you are a rider that is aware of his techniques and is aware of what he's doing at all times, because when you ride this bike, it gives you the tendency to look all around. It gives you the tendency to pay attention to a lot of things that you otherwise wouldn't pay attention to. I'm not sure what this guy's doing, but then again, it's a Toyota driver, so I'm not expecting a whole lot. I think the important thing, again, technique. Definitely make sure you're aware of what you're doing and don't ride crossed up. One of the things I caught myself doing initially, just because I was looking around like, wow, look, I haven't seen this stuff riding the same road 100 times before on my sport bike, because I'm, thinking I'm racing every time I get on it. So this bike, definitely, I've seen more of where I live than I have ever before, and part of the reason I love this bike. On top of that, this bike just gives you an incredible view. You're sitting so high. I mean, I can see clear over the car in front of me right now, and that gives you a great feeling too. It gives you an ability to judge your distances, seeing if traffic's stopping, and a lot of people late braking, not paying attention themselves, or God forbid texting while driving. And okay, interesting spot to make a U-turn, but again, we have clear reason why. So let's go and talk about the engine in a little bit more detail. Again, It is the 1200. It is slightly smaller. It has an extremely great power band for its design. It is not designed to be all top-end power. It was in fact designed to give you low-end torque, which I think is exactly what you want. The other thing on this bike is the braking is combined, meaning that when you push the front to brake, it, if needed, will also engage the rear brake. You can turn that off by disabling ABS, which in this case will allow you to lock up the rear brake, and most definitely allow you to lock up the front brake, even though that is generally not a good idea. The other thing is, as you can see on the front here, there is two deflectors on the side of the windscreen. Those are additional wind deflection that during the testing of this bike through wind tunnels, it must have definitely become aware that adding those was going to deflect a lot more wind. And I can attest to the fact that on the freeway, I cannot feel air at all. I've opened my face shield at over 80 miles an hour, and I can tell you that I could easily open my face shield and not feel anything hitting me in the face. Now, given if you're very tall and you sit far above the windscreen, maybe you're a lot taller than I am. I'm only 5'8", 5'9", so short, then maybe you will not be able to do that. But that's not the point. You shouldn't be doing that anyways. The point is that the way that the bike deflects air, I find, is very, very good. And again, riding in the city, let's take a look here at our temperature, see where we're at on a very warm day. Exterior temp, 82.4, which I think is on the cooler side, but I could be wrong. Engine temperature, 196. Now you may think, wow, that's high. It is not high. We're in first gear, putting around. Engine is barely getting any air, and I think it's very good. Now, let's go back to our consumption. It has gone up. It is now at 47. Again, if that is accurate to what we're doing right now, I think that is phenomenal. Now, one of the things I want to add on, a lot of bikes have mirrors that most people a lot of the time will replace with bar end mirrors, or you know, some sort of mirror that they desire, maybe an extended length mirror. These mirrors are 100% functional. I don't see my shoulders, I don't see myself. I can see clear behind me, I have excellent visibility. I generally can see 2, sometimes 3 lanes in either direction of me, depending where I'm at on the freeway, for example. No problem. The other thing that's nice about this bike is on the highway, for the most part, a 6-gear only bike, as generally in California highway speeds, this bike will be in the upper part of the 6th gear, so it's really never necessary to shift down to 5th unless for some reason you really need to try and use every bit of power that the bike has. I've been on the highway and had not had the need to shift down to pass. It has excellent passing power in 6th gear, which I like a lot. Going up hills, since the bike produces so much torque, if your cruise control is engaged, I've never had to shift down or make any further adjustments. The bike has plenty power, so it does everything perfectly on its own. The other thing that I will hit on this bike is a negative for me, is it has a lack of storage. Unless you've got the bags, which this bike does not have equipped currently. Of course, it is available, as it is with all GS's. There's no real storage inside the bike, even to put your wallet or your cell phone. Most bikes, including my sport bike, underneath the passenger rear seat, I'm able to lift it up and fit my wallet or my cell phone under there for storage. This bike does not offer that. You can remove both seats on this bike, which I'll say is far easier. No screws, nuts, bolts to remove. Just using the key in either the right direction, twisting for the passenger seat, or the left direction, twisting for the driver's seat, is the easiest way to remove them, and I think is a very, very convenient way to do it. but there's no storage. Easy access for servicing and all that for sure, but as far as well, thank you for sharing the road, sir. Okay, well, this guy definitely not aware of what's going on. Wow, now that's a story. Sorry, I had to watch what was going on there, guys. Apologize. Finally, nice cold breeze. So yes, no storage. One problem on the bike without the bag. So if you get this bike, I suggest getting all bags and just keeping on the center bag, or the bag that sits in line with you up high, so that you don't get any kind of feeling that you know, can't split lanes comfortably. I have ridden this bike with bags on it, and I can tell you, having not been on a bike often with bags, it definitely is something you need to get used to, and is something that you know, it's a bit unusual. At first you feel that you're a lot wider than you really are, until you realize that your bags are no wider than your mirrors. But again, it's which you know, just takes time and a little bit of risk, and you know, and you're generally good from there. So furthermore, the bikes are very easy to ride, but one of the things to touch on this bike is the fact that getting to a full stop and start on a hill, generally you can use the friction zone of the bike to hold you pretty good. Interesting enough, on this bike, even though I know it's heavy and everything I've stated to you guys, it is not very good about giving you much leeway to do anything without you know, giving it some throttle. It really requires you to have throttle, and to maintain your throttle to get any kind of movement on the bike. So that's one thing I've definitely noticed. Kind of chaotic down here today. So, adding on, the bike's tires from factory. I just slipped the name of the tires. I don't know much about them. I've never used them prior to riding this bike. For road use and for everything I'm doing, obviously they are on the harder compound side. Again, this is not a competition tire, nor is it a competition bike, and I find them to be absolutely sufficient for road use. However, this particular model, tires, I don't know what the effect would be on hard pack type roads. I have not tried it, nor do I have the inclination to. If I was to do any type of dirt riding on this bike, I would first want the spoke rims, and second, I would want to pair that with a set of more aggressive or even straight knobby tires, which you can get available from your BMW Motorrad dealership. The other thing on this bike that I might want to add on is the gauge cluster. You know, most of the current sport bikes will have an analog display paired with a analog speedometer display paired with a digital speedometer display and an analog RPM display. My apologies there. So again, a analog RPM display with a digital speedometer display. This bike has both analog RPM and speedometer. I wasn't sure how I was going to like that. The riding is small. Initially, kind of tough to see. But actually now riding the bike a little bit, it's very easy to get an idea of where you're at simply by just taking a quick peek at your RPMs. It actually does give you kind of an idea where you're at. It seems that around 4,000 is going to be my highway speed, and then you know, in 6th gear. The other thing is the gauge cluster with the reading on your gear shift display is very clear, easy to see. I actually quite like having those. I'm used to it on my sport bike. I know a lot say, well, you know, you should know what gear you're in, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what, a lot of the time I'm doing something, I'm driving around a road, I'm going through and I'm paying attention to what I'm doing, a few different things. And it's nice to be able to look down and say, oh, okay, I'm in fourth, where maybe I thought I was in third, and rather than shifting up, down, up, down, up, down, oh, wait, I'm here, I'm there. Now I know, just takes half a second to look down, okay, I'm in second, I'm in third, I'm in first, whatever. Doesn't matter, you know where you're at, that's what's important. So continuing on, as I kind of, I'm thinking here if there's anything I'm not hitting on. We've touched on the brakes, we've touched on the engine, we've touched on comfort, visibility, we've covered on shifting. Actually one thing I wanted to touch base on, as I was touching base on the transmission here just a minute ago. The gearbox is very similar to a dirt bike. It is somewhat clunky, the throws are somewhat long. Shifting into fourth gear has been, I guess, unusual. I find that fourth gear, it doesn't always want to get into fourth gear. It really depends where you're at. The bike is very sensitive to gear load. In other words, it much prefers to shift only under stronger acceleration and then more of an abrupt let off on the accelerator while shifting. So I will kind of demonstrate here what I mean by that. So I'm in second gear currently. I'm going to want to get into third. So if I just shift like this, like that, there's a little bit of jerkiness in the transmission. So let's go down to second and let's slow down, build a little bit of gap. So if I shift like this, very smooth, nothing. So I had to do a harder acceleration on the bike, and then I let off the accelerator, which then unloaded the transmission and the gears, and then shifted in between that process. So by there leaving the least amount of load on the actual gears and transmission during that shift is when the bike liked it. Now, given the weight of the bike again, I'll keep hitting on weight, that's not something that's completely surprising to me. The other thing on this bike, again, we've talked about cruise control, we've talked about the gauge cluster, the meters. This bike does have heated grips. The heated grips are incredibly powerful. Same as my S1000. You can feel them through any glove, and they are way too hot initially. I generally always find myself turning it down. But then again, I'm in California and it doesn't get that cold. So, you know, that's something that, you know, for those who I think live in a colder climate will really appreciate. And even in California during the winter, I know on my bike, it's a great feature. I mean, you'll ride and you'll be going, you know, late at night, and it does get cold. You know, obviously there's a wind chill factor when you ride, and it, you know, it's nice to have your hands warm. Generally, that controls a lot of your body heat. What else? Let's see. Easy shifter, they adjusted the location of the signals. BMW used to have it where your right hand would be your right and your left would be your left, and I thought that was stupid. Now they've gone to the traditional indicator, which is controlled, you know, same way that I think most bikes are. Push is cancel, and you just push right, push left, all with your left hand, left thumb, and very easy, simple, works great, good feel. Buttons feel solid. That's one thing, thinking about talking about solid. The bike's build quality, I think it is very good. Keeping in mind that BMW cannot build everything with solid steel. They got to keep weight down, and of course not steel, but meaning that they can't build everything that's really thick and heavy duty, because they also got to keep in mind weight. I think the frame, the design, I believe this is the trellis style frame. I believe that the way everything's put together is great. All the bolts, nuts, the way that all the panels come together. And in fact, for BMW, I will admit, I think that this is one of their best examples of their quality. Panel gap is non-existent, something I would expect on the Hondas, which I believe has some of the best, if not the best, fit and finish in the industry. This bike, I would say, has similar and on par. Yeah, similar or on par fit and finish with Honda. The horn sucks, just so you know. But yes, very happy with the way it's put together. Excellent fit and finish. One of the things that you can't get away from a BMW, and I don't know if I've mentioned this in prior reviews, is the service. You know, one of my biggest holdbacks, I love Ducati, I love Jap bikes. You know, I did a review on a Gixxer, I love that bike. My biggest problem with those bikes is the dealer network. They all seem to be pretty piss poor. I know in Southern California with Ducati, you know, you walk into a dealer and they really treat you like garbage. They quote you 10 times what the job's worth, and they do half the work and try to get away with everything, and I hate that mentality. Thus far, again, this is all personal, very subjective opinion, BMW has offered me far better service. So one of the big selling points to me is also the service. I'd like to demonstrate here, going over a couple speed bumps at 30 miles an hour, how the bike reacts. Right over it. Rear suspension is, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, not dialed in, but as you can see, now if you're standing as I am on the bike, you go over it, you move, and the bike reacts perfectly. Just excellent. The bike gives you so much confidence standing on it. I love the way it reacts. I love the way that it handles for its weight. Very impressive. Okay, so let's just do a quick overview and go over everything. So again, 125 horsepower, 92 foot-pounds of torque, 525 pounds roughly. Pros of the bike: very comfortable, excellent engine, takes some getting used to, but again, excellent engine. Great feel, good visibility, great seating position, access to the bars. They have adjusted the bars on this bike. They have moved them a tad closer to you, so now you don't have as far of a reach as you did prior. Easy control access, cruise control works great. The dash is very easy to read, clear. Love the new windscreen adjustment, the ability to simply just turn this knob to lower or lift your windscreen. Let me demonstrate lowering it real quick. Simple as that. 2 seconds, you're done. The other thing that I absolutely love on this bike is its gearing. Makes it very easy to be in any gear. As you can see, I just slowed down, made a turn last minute in 3rd gear. No concerns, no questions asked. Bike does it, and it's smooth. One of the things I will absolutely hit on this bike in this overview is the throttle. When you get on this bike, if it does not have the adjustable modes, which does make a significant difference in throttle as it adjusts the maps and responsiveness, the throttle on this bike is extremely twitchy, has absolutely no dead spot, no room for error. It is instant, meaning that when you get on it, you need to be very aware that you're not putting your weight on the bars, which I can guarantee you will give the bike a dead RPM range, meaning that you will be sitting with your hand on the bar, unaware of the fact that you are actually holding the rev or the idle on the bike higher than where it would be if you were not touching the bar. That is dangerous, and it is something that I was a victim of on this bike initially, and I want to make you aware of it so that you guys do not suffer from any issues with that. Again, the bike requires no direct throttle, as far as no jerky response, excuse me. You want to be extremely smooth on the throttle. You want to be extremely linear, and you want to make sure that you are keeping yourself in line with the bike. Don't ride crossed up. Don't ride numb. You want to ride this bike like you would any other bike, especially like a sport bike. When you go around a corner, you want to be, you want to have your head lead the turn. You don't want to have the bike lead the turn, and you want to be aware of everything. Also, keep in mind that because you've got a longer stroke, you want to be aware of your braking distances. ABS and traction control can only do so much. This bike doesn't have traction control. I personally prefer it that way. Some and most would buy it with it. I would as well, just to have it. But the fact of the matter is that you want to definitely be cautious and think of the bike you're on. The bike does not do magic. It just has a lot of technology, which does help, but stupidity is still stupidity, and technology can't fix that for the most part. So other than that, I don't recall how much fuel the bike holds. I want to say this particular model, which is not the Adventure model, as the Adventure model still has the traditional air oil cool engine. This bike has the water cooled engine. This bike holds, I believe, a little over 5 gallons of fuel. Thus far has shown to be plenty fuel. Of course, on a bike like this, I'll take as much as I can get. But I'm satisfied with the fuel capacity that it has. Other than that, the display, easy to read, easy to see, no issues there. Instant throttle response, engine's responsive. It has a bit of an unusual idle initially, something you'll get used to. You'll feel that it jumps around idle a little bit. Also very sensitive on temperature. Talking about riding cross stuff, what do you know, there's a Harley rider doing that very thing. But then again, I guess it is a bike that it's hard not to do that on. But other than that, guys, I hope I've answered all the questions. I love this bike. I'm looking to pretty much get one myself. I highly suggest you go visit a BMW dealer, take a look at one, demo one. BMW is really good about allowing riders to do that, and I think that it's worth doing for sure. So again, any questions, feel free to post below, and I hope that I've answered all your questions. All right, guys.